On the day of our honeymoon, Caleb's female secretary insisted on coming with us. When we got to the airport, she wanted to go mountain climbing. I wanted to see the snow. Caleb hesitated for a moment, then chose to go along with his secretary, without asking me a single question. He changed our original plans. That day, I didn't board the plane. I went to a northern city of ice all by myself. Caleb spent a week with his secretary before finally calling me. Nora, throwing a tantrum on the first day of our marriage. I don't have the patience to always indulge you. But he seemed to have forgotten that on the day we were supposed to get our marriage license, his secretary's fever had called him away. We weren't even married yet. I had pleaded with Caleb for a long time before he finally agreed to go on a honeymoon with me. I had joyfully picked our destination. But on the day of our departure, Caleb brought his female secretary along. My hand holding the suitcase suddenly went slack. I couldn't quite describe the feeling in my heart. As boarding time approached, Caleb's secretary, Angela, claimed she hadn't packed warm clothes and suggested she didn't want to see the snow anymore. She smiled as she spoke to me, but her eyes kept glancing at the man beside her. Mrs. Hayes, why don't we go mountain climbing instead? Mr. Hayes and I went just the other day, but it wasn't a very tall mountain, so he didn't get his fill. The woman looked up, stealing a glance at the man. Her eyes filled with tenderness. The man hesitated for a moment before responding in a low voice. That's a good idea. The ice city is too cold, and your health is too fragile to handle it. From beginning to end, Caleb never once asked for my opinion. I stood there silently, watching as he changed our original itinerary and rebooked the tickets. I saw the deep affection that unintentionally flowed from the woman's eyes. And suddenly, I was tired. In the 10th year of my unrequited love for Caleb, this was the first time the thought of giving up had crossed my mind. I didn't walk towards the boarding gate. Instead, I called out to Caleb. He turned, noticing I was standing far away from him, and his brow furrowed slightly. Nora, you were the one who wanted to go on a honeymoon. What kind of scene are you making now? So he did remember this was supposed to be our honeymoon. I thought he had completely forgotten. My voice was cold as I replied. I'm not going with you too. You go ahead. Caleb's frown deepened. He stared at me without a word. Angela squeezed Caleb's fingertips and shook her head at him. The airport was crowded. It wasn't the place for a fight. A tear instantly appeared on her face as she played the part of the victim. Mr. Hayes, if Mrs. Hayes really wants to go to the city of ice, I don't mind the cold. Please don't fight because of me. Ma'am. Mr. Hayes pulled several all-nighters just to free up this week. Please try to be more understanding. The man stared at me for a while. Seeing I had no intention of changing my mind, he left me with a single sentence. Don't you regret this? He turned and walked into the boarding gate. The woman wiped away her tear, gave me a faint smile, and hurried after him. After Caleb left, I stood there for a long time, as if I had lost all my strength. I don't know how much time passed before I boarded a flight to the northern city of ice. Alone. Perhaps the city was so cold it froze all my feelings for Caleb. I barely thought of him that week. I had a wonderful time, even waiting in line for free candied hawthorns and frozen pears. Just as I was thinking of staying a few more days, Caleb finally contacted me. He said, Nora, throwing a tantrum on the first day of our marriage. I don't have the patience to always indulge you. I looked at the lopsided snowman I had built and suddenly laughed. You don't need to. I swallowed the last bite of my candied hawthorn and, for the first time, hung up on him. Caleb seemed to have forgotten that on the day we were supposed to get our marriage license, his secretary's fever had called him away. As of now, we weren't even married. While I was still in the city of ice, word that Caleb and Angela were on a honeymoon together had spread throughout our social circle. I had deliberately avoided my phone for days, so I had no idea what Caleb and his secretary had been up to. It was only when a friend told me that I found out. They had been traveling together for a week, and Angela had been posting photos every single day. Climbed a mountain with the boss today. Boo-hoo. He didn't wait for me. The picture was of Caleb's back as he walked ahead. Later, they went boating, soaked in hot springs, and even went bungee jumping. They traveled through several cities, looking like a couple in the throes of a passionate romance, leaving their mark everywhere they went. I can't deny that those photos affected me. The next day, I bought a ticket back and left the city of ice. As soon as the plane landed, I went straight to Caleb's company. I found Angela and slammed the photos she had posted down on her desk. Angela, are you that impatient to flaunt your victory? If you want to show off, at least wait until Caleb and I have separated. Aren't you ashamed of being so brazen in front of everyone? The woman was terrified, lightly biting her lip. Ma'am, you've misunderstood. I only posted those as mementos. I didn't mean anything else. Besides, Mr. Hayes was fine with it. That line that Caleb knew sent a sharp, dense pain through my heart. I had thought this was just Angela's way of hurting me, but I never expected Caleb to be her accomplice. He blatantly allowed another woman to publicly slap me in the face, allowing outsiders to call me a pathetic woman who couldn't keep her man. Hearing Angela's sobs, the man pushed open the door. He handed Angela a tissue to wipe her tears, then turned to me with a cold expression. Nora, this is not a place for you. Get out. I looked up and met his gaze, seeing the icy chill in his eyes. My own eyes began to sting, something threatening to overflow. I quickly turned to leave. I had only taken a few steps when he called out to me. Nora, this is the last time I will tolerate your unreasonable behavior. If there's a next time, let's just get a divorce. I suddenly laughed at myself. How do you divorce a marriage that never had a license or a wedding? I turned back to look at him. I saw him gently wiping the tears from Angela's face with his fingers. His movements were incredibly tender. The truth is, I always knew that Angela was different to Caleb. She had been his secretary ever since she graduated from college. For 5 whole years. The time they spent together was several times more than the time I had spent with him. I used to believe that if I loved Caleb enough, he would love me back just the same. But now, reality had dealt me a harsh blow. Love was never something you could earn simply by how much you gave. Caleb didn't expect me to turn back. The hand he had raised instinctively curled slightly. I smiled at him. Caleb, there's no need for a next time. Let's just end things now. Ma'am, it's all my fault. I'll resign right now. Please don't blame Mr. Hayes. Angela clutched Caleb's sleeve, another tear rolling down her cheek. Mr. Hayes, if you just coax her a little, she'll forgive you. If she wants to break up, then fine. As long as she doesn't come back begging in a few days. Under the woman's tearful pleas, Caleb only grew angrier. I watched with amusement as she touched his body again and again without being pushed away. No one knew that in the 5 years I had pursued Caleb, I had never even held his hand once. The day he agreed to be with me, I finally mustered the courage to take his hand. But the moment I touched his little finger, he flinched and took a step back. Caleb's expression was distant and cold. He said flatly, "Sorry, I'm not used to it yet." That day, my face burned with shame, and I felt a pang of disappointment. I could only tell myself over and over that things would be better after we were married. But today, I finally understood. He just wasn't used to me touching him. I took one last, long look at Caleb, no longer feeling any lingering affection for him. When I got home, I told my family I didn't want to be with Caleb anymore. My parents looked at me, surprised, but also somewhat troubled. It turned out my family's company was having project issues and needed financial support from the Hayes Corporation. This engagement was not one that could be easily broken, unless I could find a backer even more powerful than the Hayes family. So, less than half a day later, I shamelessly called Caleb again. I wanted to ask him, for the sake of our family's friendship, to not pull the investment, even if we weren't getting married. If I backed out, he could be with Angela. After my 15th call was finally answered, a voice came through. Miss Hale, Mr. Hayes is in a business meeting. It's best not to disturb him. I took a breath. When you're asking for a favor, you have to humble yourself. Then when he's finished, please have him call me back. Angela's voice on the other end was tinged with mockery, her tone changing. Mr. Hayes doesn't have time for irrelevant people. Why don't you just come and find him yourself? Angela gave me an address, and I rushed over. When I arrived, she was standing at the door as if she were specifically waiting to welcome me. Miss Hale, Mr. Hayes just finished his meeting. He's inside waiting for you now. But when I pushed the door open, there were more than a dozen people inside, clinking glasses and networking, all elites of the business world. Caleb raised a glass of red wine to his lips and looked at me with displeasure. Get out. Behind me, Angela had already disappeared. I knew she had tricked me. I cursed her under my breath. Just as I was about to close the door, a voice stopped me. He was sitting opposite Caleb, exuding an aura even colder and sharper than Caleb's. When he spoke, Caleb, though annoyed, changed his mind and let me in. Once inside the private room, I got a clear look at the man who had just stopped me. It was the eldest son of the Sterling group, Julian Sterling. He sat with his legs crossed, leaning back lazily on the sofa, but his eyes were sizing me up. We held each other's gaze for a full minute. Caleb suddenly stood up and moved in front of me, blocking the other man's view. What are you doing here? I didn't want to stay here a moment longer, but I found it difficult to speak. Just before Caleb's patience ran out, I managed to get the words out. Caleb, our engagement. Huh. Regretting it after just half a day apart. Nora, are you really that in love with me? Caleb sneered, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Everyone in the room laughed. They had all heard about my intense infatuation with Caleb and were enjoying the show. Seeing that Caleb had misunderstood, I quickly tried to continue. The sharp clink of a wine glass suddenly rang out. The laughter stopped. Julian stood up, adjusting his coat, a faint smile playing on his lips, but there was a hidden flicker of some unknown anger in his eyes. Since Mr. Hayes is busy, we'll call it a day. As soon as Julian left, everyone else in the room followed him out. Angela timed her entrance perfectly, rushing in with a voice full of distress. Mr. Hayes, I'm so sorry. I couldn't stop her. Caleb waved his hand, rubbing his throbbing temples, looking exhausted. He had gone to great lengths to invite Julian to this gathering. The Sterling Group was determined to acquire the land on the west side of the city, and he had hoped to negotiate a compromise. Now, Nora had ruined everything. He was in a bad mood, and naturally, some of that anger was directed at her. Don't make me say it a second time. Go home. Now. I never expected Caleb to get so angry with me. In the past, even when he disliked me, he would only be cold and distant, never so harsh with his words. His yelling startled me, and tears instantly welled up in my eyes. I wanted to defend myself, to tell him I wasn't here to reconcile. But now, I couldn't say a word, no matter why I had come to find him. In his eyes, it was a crime. Impatient, Caleb grabbed his secretary and left the room. In the quiet room, I was left all alone. At that moment, I finally broke down and cried. So this is how painful it is to pull away from love. I cried with my head down for a long time, completely unaware that someone else had entered the room. He spoke suddenly, startling me out of my sobs. Stop crying. It's too noisy. I looked up with my swollen, red eyes at the man towering over me. He was holding his phone, gesturing with it. My apologies. I forgot my phone. After a pause, he spoke again. I never realized Miss Hale was so deeply in love with Mr. Hayes. I must say, I'm impressed. He said it with a biting tone that I found utterly baffling. I didn't want to lose face in front of a stranger, so I got up from the floor. I wiped away my tears and replied in a stuffy voice. I don't love him anymore. Never again. Perhaps because of my reputation. The man snorted, clearly not believing me. I became a little flustered, desperate to sever any connection with Caleb. I really didn't come here to get back together with him. I just wanted to ask him not to pull the funding from my family's company after we broke up. The man was silent for a long time. I don't know why I was telling him all this. I brushed off my skirt, picked up my bag, and started to leave. Julian blocked my path. His eyes were deep and dark now, his gaze burning into me. Is what you said true? You really don't love him anymore? I nodded, absolutely certain. The man's eyes flickered, and a smile slowly spread across his lips, growing wider. He gently stroked my hair, his expression almost approving. Good girl. That night, I don't know how Julian got me home. Lying in bed, I was still in a daze. Julian said he would help my family's company, on one condition, that I marry him. I irritably pulled the covers over my head, trying to shake the chaotic thoughts from my mind. I tossed and turned all night, unsurprisingly sleepless. The matter didn't give me time to make a decision. The next morning, my parents told me that the funding the Hayes Corporation had promised was gone. My father paced anxiously in the living room, while my mother wiped away tears. I didn't know if it was because I had gone to see Caleb yesterday, But the timing was too coincidental. I felt a pang of guilt. After a long while, my father's face flushed red, and he looked at me with unconcealed shame. Nora, could you go and ask Caleb for help? Dad has truly run out of options. I knew how difficult it must have been for my father, who had always doted on me, to say those words. I nodded, forcing a light-hearted tone. No problem, Dad. Leave it to me. After the unpleasant encounter with Caleb yesterday, I really didn't want to see him. But compared to a stranger who had suddenly proposed marriage, Caleb felt like the safer bet. I went directly to his office. This time, Angela didn't stop me. She seemed to have expected my arrival, smiling as she led me into Caleb's office. She even thoughtfully closed the door on her way out. I saw the man with his back to me, head in his hands, looking utterly exhausted. He didn't give me a chance to speak, nor did he turn to look at me. If you're here about the funding, you can go back. The board has already made its decision. Caleb, are you retaliating against me because I stood up to Angela? Caleb turned around, his eyes still sharp. Nora, people have to pay for their actions. Angela is not someone you can bully as you please. As for the funding, there's nothing I can do. Once Caleb made up his mind, very few people could change it. I let out a self-deprecating laugh. I had been too naive. I thought that my years of history with Caleb would have earned me a small, special place in his heart. Now I saw how wrong I was. I didn't plead with him any further. I closed the door as I left, sealing off the world that had once held the two of us. So be it. No debts to each other. That was good enough. Miss Hale, leaving so soon. Something that throws itself at you really is cheap. Can't even hold on to old feelings. I shot the woman a sideways glance, the fire simmering inside me burning hotter. Before she could react, I strode forward and slapped her twice across the face. Afterwards, I walked away without a backward glance. Leaving the Hayes Corporation building, I dialed Julian's number. In less than 3 seconds, a lazy male voice answered, as if he had just woken up. It hasn't been 3 days yet. Has Miss Hale already made up her mind? It's all right. I can wait. Take your time to think it over. I gripped my phone tightly and looked back at the window of Caleb's office. Finally, I closed my eyes. Julian, let's get married. Julian's investment arrived in my family's company account in less than an hour. My parents called me home and, for the first time, were furious with me. Even if the company goes bankrupt, I will not sell my daughter. I'm returning this money to that sterling boy right now. My mother also pleaded with me through tears. Nora, Mom and Dad don't need you to sacrifice yourself. It took all my strength to suppress the sting in my nose as I smiled at them. Julian and I are truly in love. I want to marry him. With a web of lies, I painted myself as a fickle woman who had fallen deeply in love with Julian. My parents were skeptical and actually found Julian's number to call and confirm. Before I could stop them, Julian had already answered. His attitude was surprisingly good. Sir and ma'am, Nora and I didn't mean to hide this from you. She's a bit timid. Please don't blame her. If you have to blame someone, blame me. I don't know what Julian said, but my father's rage completely dissipated. He charmed my father into laughing heartily, and the call lasted for nearly an hour. After hanging up, my father couldn't stop praising Julian. What a fine young man. A worthy son-in-law for our family. That afternoon, Julian arrived at our house with a car full of gifts. My mother quickly sent our housekeeper out to buy groceries. After dinner, Julian suddenly suggested that we go get our marriage license. His words were so sudden they shocked our entire family. My parents, who had just been calling him their good son-in-law, were in no position to refuse. And so, in a daze, just before the city hall closed, Julian and I got our marriage license. He said he wanted to give me a grand wedding and had already chosen a date. Since Julian wanted to keep the wedding private for now, not a word got out. To this day, no one knows about our wedding. Over the next few days, I was busy with Julian, taking wedding photos and picking out furniture. I was so busy I was run off my feet. I didn't even have time to see my friends when they called. When they came to my house to find me, they saw the staff delivering my wedding dress. And just like that, the news of the wedding got out. At the private club, Caleb had been a near-daily fixture recently. He would drink himself into a stupor before leaving each time someone brought up my wedding, teasing, "Caleb, you and Nora never had a wedding ceremony. Do you think she's doing this to get you to throw one for her? Looks like Miss Hale is putting the pressure on you. Are you going to attend? Caleb, lost in thought, chugged a glass of strong liquor. A flicker of disdain crossed his eyes. She's just making a scene. I'm not going to indulge her. The crowd applauded. That's our Caleb. A role model for all men. The group, enjoying the drama, seemed to already envision my embarrassment on that day. Then wouldn't all of Miss Hale's efforts be wasted? She's bound to cry. Cry. I bet she'll be so heartbroken she'll ask Caleb for a divorce. Haha. Wouldn't that be exactly what Caleb wants? Then he can be with his precious little secretary. Caleb drank silently, growing more and more agitated. He stood up abruptly and shot a glare at the crowd. Nora is not someone you can just gossip about. All of you, watch your mouths. I never expected Caleb to come looking for me, especially not late at night. My parents were already asleep. The housekeeper asked if she should let him in. I told her to open the door while I threw on a robe and went downstairs. Caleb reeked of alcohol. His face flushed. It was clear he had been drinking. I didn't want to wake my parents, so we talked in the courtyard. It was chilly outside, and I just wanted to get back inside, so I didn't want to waste words. What do you want? Caleb stared at me intently, then asked, Are you preparing for a wedding? Although I didn't know how he found out, I had no intention of hiding it. I nodded, saying nothing more. Caleb sneered, his face full of contempt. Nora, do you really have to have a wedding? Didn't I already take you on a honeymoon? Isn't a honeymoon in place of a wedding good enough? He had the nerve to bring up the honeymoon. I shot him a sarcastic glance, but I didn't argue. I felt that even arguing with him was a waste of breath. What does my wedding have to do with you? I didn't invite you. What was he doing here in the middle of the night, drunk and causing a scene? I turned and headed back inside. Caleb's voice was tight with anger behind me. Fine, Nora. Well, see how you manage on your own. I won't be there that day. Watching Norris retreating back, the throbbing in Caleb's head intensified. For some reason, Julian had been on a warpath with the Hayes Corporation lately. The investment promised to the Hale family had also been vetoed by the board. He was swamped with work every day and simply wasn't in the mood to placate her. And now Nora was insisting on some wedding. His parents were already having second thoughts about their marriage. At a time like this, she should be quietly by his side. Caleb sighed deeply, then shook his head in resignation. She was the wife he had chosen. What could he do? On the day of the wedding, many people from their social circle went to watch the spectacle. Even many from the Sterling group were said to have attended. It was a rare piece of entertainment that no one wanted to miss. Caleb couldn't convince his parents to attend, so he put on his groom's suit himself. He still couldn't bear to let Nora become a laughingstock. But just 10 minutes after he left, his secretary, Angela, called. Her voice was breathless over the phone. Mr. Hayes, I'm having an asthma attack, and I don't have my medicine. Help me. He knew Angela had asthma. A few days ago, she mentioned she was running low on medicine and was planning to take a day off to go to the hospital. Work had been too hectic, so she probably hadn't found the time. Ultimately, this was his fault. Caleb glanced at the time. The wedding was in less than an hour. If he was quick, he could still make it. Caleb made a sharp U-turn, went to the hospital to pick up the medicine, and rushed to Angela's apartment. He had been here a few times, so the doorman recognized him and let him in. He had a spare key to Angela's apartment and let himself in. But as soon as he opened the door, he saw the woman in her pajamas, casually eating fruit on the sofa. Seeing him, Angela froze and quickly hid the fruit behind her back. Her cheeks were rosy. She didn't look sick at all. The woman explained weakly, her face pale. Mr. Hayes, I found my medicine. I'm fine now. Caleb didn't believe her, but he didn't have time to argue. He tossed the medicine at Angela and turned to leave for Nora's wedding. But the woman behind him threw her arms around him. She hugged his waist with all her strength, refusing to let go. She cried, Mr. Hayes, you obviously don't like her. Why do you always go out of your way for her? Let her be humiliated. Don't go to her. Haven't you done enough for her already? Caleb pried Angela's hands off him, inch by inch, angry with her for the first time. Angela, my business with her is none of your concern. Let go. I sat in the dressing room, looking at my beautiful reflection in the mirror. The wedding I had longed for so many years was being given to me by Julian. I had waited and hoped for Caleb for so long, but in the end, he never came. In this moment, all the past memories seemed like a dream, fading further and further away. I smiled at the woman in the mirror. As I smiled, I couldn't hold back the tears, and they streamed down my face. The makeup artist teased me. "You and Mr. Sterling make such a beautiful couple. The bride must be crying tears of joy." My mother wiped my tears, her own face wet with them. "Our Nora is getting married, marrying the man she loves. Mom is so happy for you." My parents didn't know about the deal between Julian and me, and I never intended for them to find out. Whatever Julian's reasons for marrying me, he had helped my family. Marrying him was a transaction I entered into willingly. My father took my hand and walked me towards Julian, handing me over to him with tears in his eyes. Julian's hand was warm, his large palm enveloping mine completely. He gently stroked my palm and whispered, "Why are your hands so cold?" The man's eyes were full of concern and tenderness, which made me feel a little uneasy. In front of all our guests, Julian and I exchanged rings. Under the spotlight, Julian slowly leaned in, and we completed the final ritual of the ceremony. His lips were not as forceful as his hands, cool yet searingly hot, surrounded by blessings. I looked at the sparkling diamond on my hand. I realized I was married to a man who was a complete stranger to me. After I changed my dress, as Julian and I were toasting our guests, Caleb suddenly burst through the door. He was panting heavily, as if he had rushed here from somewhere far away. Caleb stood frozen at the entrance for a long moment, then walked towards me, his eyes red-rimmed. His voice trembled slightly. "Nora, who is he?" I hadn't expected this reaction from Caleb. Didn't he dislike me? Why was he putting on such a wounded act? Before I could answer, Julian pulled me behind him. He shielded me completely. "I am Nora's husband. Welcome to our wedding." Julian extended his hand towards him, his etiquette impeccable. In that instant, Caleb froze completely. His eyes were fixed on the wedding ring on Julian's hand, a bitter taste filling his mouth. He never imagined Nora would marry another man. Caleb had always been confident that she would love him forever. How could she? How could she just abandon him like this? If she wanted a wedding, he could give her one. If she wanted a honeymoon, he could go with her. But it seemed he would never get that chance again. That day, everyone saw Caleb's utter devastation. Only I, standing behind Julian, did not see his pathetic state. Caleb spent 2 days drinking himself into a stupor at the club, to the point where his parents had to come and get him. When his friends helped him up, he was stumbling badly. His father, showing no sympathy, slapped Caleb hard across the face. His mother hugged her son, her heart aching. His father, disappointed and angry, gritted his teeth. "You worthless thing. Falling apart over a woman. You've disgraced the Hayes family name." Aware of the outsiders in the room, his father didn't say more, only asking, "When did you and Nora get divorced? Why didn't you tell us?" At the mention of my name, Caleb finally looked up. His eyes were bloodshot and glistening with tears. "We didn't get a divorce." Everyone was shocked. His mother was so angry she was about to march over to my family's house to confront me. "Because we never actually got married," Caleb sobbed, his cries heart-wrenching. On the day they were supposed to get their license, Angela had a fever. He had one foot inside the city hall, but he had turned back. What had he said then? He had said that Angela rarely got sick, that he had to go and check on her. He had told Nora to wait for him, that he would be back. But that day, he had forgotten to go back, and Nora seemed to have forgotten to remind him. Later, it wasn't that Caleb didn't know they hadn't gotten their marriage license. But what did a piece of paper matter? Though he was sometimes impatient with Nora, he had grown accustomed to her being around. He had long considered her his, and so, he had subconsciously forgotten about this legal bond of marriage. Now, Caleb was filled with regret. The day after the wedding, Julian took me to the City of Ice. He went skiing with me, built a snowman with me, and we ate candied hawthorns. We wore heavy down jackets, hats, and gloves, and explored every corner of the icy city. One afternoon, I had just woken up from a nap to see Julian standing in the courtyard on the phone. The sunlight bathed him in a warm glow. In that moment, I suddenly realized I was beginning to feel a flicker of affection for this man. Seeing I was awake, Julian hung up the phone. He quickly walked to the bedside and gently touched my forehead. Did I wake you? Why don't you sleep a little longer? I stared at the man before me, not understanding why he was being so kind to me. For days, I had wanted to ask him this question. Why me? The man seemed to read my mind and took me to a place. It was a photo studio, its walls covered with pictures. But my eyes were drawn to one in particular. In it, a girl was bundled up, crouching next to a snowman, taking a big bite of a candied hawthorn. I recognized myself instantly. The studio owner came over and greeted Julian. Seeing me staring at the photo, he smiled and said, "Mr. Sterling brought this photo in." I thought it was so beautiful that I begged him to let me keep a copy. I slowly turned to the man beside me, looking up and blinking for a long time. "Julian, when did you start liking me?" The man wiped away my tears and gently pulled me into his arms, reminiscing. "Before you even fell for Caleb. Back then, you were always chasing after him, with eyes for no one else. I appeared before you 99 times, and you never once saw me. So I waited, and waited, for the day you would finally turn around and look at me. I never knew that during my 5 years of unrequited love, there was someone else behind me, chasing me, waiting for me." That day, Julian and I embraced in the snowy landscape, and it felt as warm as spring. The owner captured the moment and gave us the photo. Julian took me on a 3-month adventure. We visited all the places Caleb had taken Angela. Julian said I never had to be envious of other women. Whatever I wanted, he would do everything in his power to give it to me. The day we returned, my friends told me that Caleb had fired Angela. They didn't know the exact reason, but they heard that Angela had been hired as a secretary by one of Caleb's rivals. Recently, Caleb's company had lost several major contracts. The company was in turmoil. The board was dissatisfied with Caleb, and he was forced to relinquish all his executive powers. And once Angela's value was used up, she was, of course, cast aside. Later, I found out why Caleb and Angela had parted ways. The day he returned to the office, Caleb overheard Angela talking with her colleagues. "Angela, should we start calling you Mrs. Hayes now?" "Yeah, Angela, you'll have to look out for us in the future." "Oh, you guys, stop teasing. Nothing is set in stone between Mr. Hayes and me yet." Angela's eyes were full of pride and ambition, as if she had already secured the position of Mrs. Hayes. With a few words of flattery, she got carried away. "It's all that shameless Nora's fault. She wasted so many years of our time. Otherwise, Mr. Hayes and I would have been together long ago." Caleb appeared at that moment. He looked coldly at everyone, his gaze finally resting on Angela. "Say that again." Angela never expected Caleb to overhear her. She could only play the victim, trying to smooth things over. But this time, Caleb gave her no chance. With a single look, her colleagues spilled everything, including the photos Angela had posted during their honeymoon. They showed the pictures to Caleb. Caleb stared intently at the phone, his expression tense, his eyes blazing with fury. At the time, he had only allowed Angela to post one photo, hoping to make Nora jealous. He wanted Nora to listen to him and come back to him. But he never imagined that this secretary, who seemed so gentle and obedient, had been posting for 7 straight days behind his back. The angle of each photo was deliberately ambiguous. In that moment, Caleb finally understood why Nora had suddenly broken up with him after the honeymoon. The day he fired Angela, the woman begged him for a long time. He showed no mercy. Seeing that Caleb was giving her no more chances, Angela suddenly burst out laughing. She looked at him with contempt, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Caleb, if you had cared about Nora even a little, she wouldn't have dumped you for someone else. Ha ha, you deserve it." 6 months after we were married, Julian and I were expecting a child. We ran into Caleb at the hospital during a checkup. He was just coming out of the neurology department, having been treated for insomnia. He kept his head down, looking much thinner, and had a somber air about him. When he saw us, Caleb froze, a flicker of something in his eyes. He didn't greet us, but as he walked past me, he stopped. He didn't dare to look at me, keeping his distance. His once cool voice was now hoarse and broken. "Nora, I'm sorry." With that, he walked away quickly, almost running by the end. He disappeared into the crowd. Seeing me stare at Caleb's back for too long, the man beside me spoke slowly. What? Feeling sorry for your old flame. I playfully punched him in the chest, but my eyes were still fixed on the direction Caleb had gone. He seems to have changed a lot. Julian turned my head to face him and said dismissively, yes, he's gotten a bit older. He took my hand, and we walked out of the hospital together. A year later, I gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. Both our parents were overjoyed, fighting over who would help us raise the children. When the kids were 3, each set of grandparents took one, and the 2 of us began to live a life for ourselves again. Julian took me to many places, and we tried all sorts of delicious food. We never once had an argument or a fight in our entire lives. And just like that, we lived happily ever after.